Hey guys, welcome to a new video. Like, comment and subscribe if you enjoy. Without any further interruptions, enjoy the What If. Chapter 1. Prologue. Nice job breaking it, hero. A single change in fate can change everything. A 7-year-old Naruto finds himself in this situation right now, for you see, fate, the crazy bitch that she is, had it out for him this night. Gah, this is so troublesome. We find our stubby hero, cursing his rotten luck. Only a month before, the orphanage that had taken care of him all his life had kicked him out on the street. Good riddance, I say. Naruto huffed, not like he had many good memories of the place. All the adults there were always so mean to him. Hell, several times he even feared for his life after several severe beatings over very minor things, though his pranks could hardly be called minor, the flooding of the faculty bathroom being one of the more destructive things he's done. But in the end it never really did any lasting damage besides the place smelling funny for a few days as it aired out. However, the bastards were a bit more resourceful in finding loopholes in their duty of taking in all the war orphans after the Kyuubi attack. Naruto couldn't and wouldn't get into all the red tape, suffice it to say he was boned royally. With that little loophole they were able to kick him out, and there was nothing the third could do for him. So, emotionally hurt and hungry, the yellow-haired prankster had made his home on the streets, dodging the civilians that tried to beat him. Why? He had no fucking clue, but like a certain pineapple-haired Nara often said, it was too troublesome to try and sucker one of the civilians into telling him. Even if he did muster up the nerve, he doubted that any of the bastards would have wasted their breath. Oh well, Naruto mused, at least things can't get any worse. There's the little demon brat. Get him. A voice yelled from behind Naruto. He turned to look at a large mob of civilians and sweat dropped. Was that tempting fate? He thought to himself, oh shit. He took off running with the mob right behind him. Naruto was dodging random debris being thrown his way by the angry mob, including but not limited to a beer can, great, a mob of drunks, a brick, oh ha ha, a brick joke, a broom thrown like a javelin, what am I, dirt to them. ... Don't answer that. A kitchen sink. Not even gonna ask. ... Single quote. The witty thoughts Naruto had in his head with each outlandish thing being tossed his way, while keeping his mind off of fear, took away from his concentration, and that came back to bite him in the ass as he took a wrong turn and ended up in a dead-end alley. Shit. Naruto cursed his luck, turning back to see the crowd had barred the only exit. There was at least 10 of them, too many to fight and too many to fool. He wasn't getting away from this beating, he realized. He backed against the wall as far as he could, fear and anxiety clouding his eyes. He slid down the wall to a sitting position. No please, he whispered. He noticed quite a few of the villagers were armed this time. Unlike the times before, they had just physically beaten him. Most of these were carrying sharp tools and knives. Are they planning to kill me? The thought caught in his throat, choking him. The mob was only a few yards away from him now. One of the people threw a glass bottle his way, the glass projectile barely missing his head and smashing into the wall beside him. He flinched slightly as a large piece of broken glass cut across his cheek, creating a thin trail of blood. Naruto reached up and touched the burning red trail. They had never left anything more than bruises and welts on him before. This group wasn't out to enjoy a beating. They were out for blood. A shocked expression crossed his face. He looked at the gathering, fear slowly giving way to terror-induced anger as he lashed out at his aggressors verbally. Why? He yelled at them. Why are you doing this? Shut up, demon. One of them shouted. Why do you all think I'm a demon? Have I ever hurt any of you? The boy cried. A few of the villagers looked at each other uncertain. His words rang with truth. The boy himself had never personally done anything to them, but the majority of the crowd just yelled back at him. You are a demon, boy. You cannot fool us with your petty trickery. But why? He asked quietly. Only one of the people caught that. An overly drunk, overly fat man who had a large scar across his face, spoke up in a slurred voice. I'll tell ya why, ya little demon fox. The man hiccuped lightly, drawing away from his angry appearance for a moment before a deep glare filled his face. How old are you, boy? Naruto's face scrunched in confusion. I'm 7, why? The man's face grew dark. A menacing grin twitched across his face. Hee, and your birthday? October 10th. He answered slowly, his mind racing about what this could mean. Would he finally learn why he was hated? But the real question was, would he want to know? Well then, the fat man grinned wider. What happened 7 years ago on October 10th? He laughed a dark laugh, his eyes focusing on the boy, causing Naruto to break out in a cold sweat. Naruto thought for a moment, what did happen 7 years ago? The only thing I can think of is, no it can't. His face turned from confusion to shock as he stared at the fat man only a dozen feet from him, turning an ivory shade of white as he paled in front of the crowd of angry drunks. No. He finally said at length. Oh, but it can, demon boy. The man spat out, venom and malice in his voice. That night the fourth Hokage killed the nine-tailed demon fox. You were born not moments after. You, boy, are the nine-tailed fox reincarnated. It can't be. Naruto looked horrified. A sudden surge of power rushed through him, as a tingling ran through his arms. Those whisker marks and that wound that's healed on your cheek are proof enough of the demon inside of you, the man said with finality. Naruto felt for the wound again and in horror he realized it was gone, healed almost instantly. He knew he had a healing factor and that alone wasn't really normal, but this was just too much for him. No. Just. Why? His voice squeaked lightly. This time no one heard him as he hung his head in shame. I'm the fox. He thought quietly before he was broken out of his self-pity by a loud roar. He looked up sharply and saw the thugs rushing him. Naruto raised his hands in defense and time seemed to slow down for him. Naruto looked at the men approaching. The tingling he felt moments before turned into a bitter cold with a sharp wind flowing around him. The men charging stopped quickly looking at the boy in front of them. Around Naruto was a raging gale of wind and the moisture in the air had frozen. Ice began forming around him, freezing the blades of the weapons the men carried before they shattered into pieces. Most of the men looked at the boy in shock and fear. But the fat man from before had a look of utter rage on his face. See. He is a demon. The man spat, pulling out a large wooden club. He rushed forward preparing to crush the boy's skull. Naruto raised his hand in defense and the ice around him rose to meet the challenge. Unfortunately the man did not feel the pain, drunk as he was as the ice speared him in the stomach. With a look of shock he brought the club down on Naruto's skull and a splitting pain ran through Naruto's head before everything went dark. Naruto sat up and looked around. He was in a sewer with dark corridors leading away from him. In front of him was a large room, the steam and heat from the room causing a sticky feeling to break out on his skin. The only thing that seemed out of place in the dank pipe-filled chamber was a large gate-like thing in front of him. There was a small piece of paper on the gate with the kanji for seal written on it. Naruto felt strangely sick in the place, like an evil presence was watching him. Where am I? He spoke softly, not expecting a reply. You are inside your mind, foolish human. A deep reverberating voice rumbled around him causing Naruto to jump several inches in the air in shock. Naruto watched as a pair of deep red eyes appeared from behind the cage. Naruto backed up from the cage, hands shaking and face torn with terror. Who are you? He asked quickly falling back against the pipe-covered wall. Stupid boy, that man earlier told you didn't he? I am the nine-tailed demon fox, Kyubi. The beast roared the last bit and an evil smile spread in the darkness, the glittering teeth of its mouth shining behind the bars of the gate. A look of hurt crossed Naruto's face. So it's true then. I am a demon. The fox however laughed heartily, the exhaled air shaking the room. You, a demon, ha. Don't make me laugh. The beast chuckled. The only thing demonic about you is me, foolish human. That fleshy sack of meat you killed was as big a fool as you. You are no demon, you're not worthy of that title, human. The fox grinned again. Then what am I? The blonde asked, fearful of what the beast would tell him. Well, seeing as you're asking nicely, the creature mused, and I like that look of fear in your eyes, I'll tell you. 7 years ago, when I attacked this village, your father the fourth Hokage. The fox started but Naruto interrupted it in shock. The fourth Hokage was my dad. Naruto's breath caught in his throat. Old man third had told him he was an orphan. If that was a lie, why didn't the third tell him? Before he could ask the beast more he was pulled from his thoughts. Yes, stupid mortal, interrupt me again and I'll rend you soul to pieces. The threat was an idle one seeing as the seal would keep it from killing the boy, but Naruto didn't know that now did he. As I was saying, the fourth fought me outside your village and in one of the most insulting things any human has ever done to me, he summoned the Shinigami and sealed my soul and powers into you boy, his son. The fox's face screwed up in a frown. He then sealed my body and the source of half my might into him, and the Shinigami ate my body and his soul, to forever be trapped in his gullet. The fox growled deeply at the spawn of its most hated enemy. To answer your earlier question, you boy, are the bearer of a demon. In the words of your weak language, you are known as a Jinchuriki, a human sacrifice meant to hold back the powers of a demon, and as much as I loathe the fact, you are also the only thing keeping me alive. This seal here binds us together. If you die, I die, it's as simple as that. Naruto was silent a moment. He finally looked up at the evil presence that now had a shape and name. So what now? What do I do now that I know all this? He was at a loss, even asking the demon itself what he should do. No boy should feel that lost in his existence. The fox, however, answered predictably. Why not release me, boy? The fox grinned. Remove the seal and let me free to kill the villagers that have wronged you for so long. Naruto thought for a moment before shaking his head. But I don't want them to die, and even if I did, I don't want you to attack and kill the people I care about, and since you're a demon I can't trust your word that you won't kill them. The fox let loose a laugh louder than all the rest. Ha. Maybe you aren't so foolish after all, puny human. Yes, I admit it all. I would crush the bones of all your loved ones, suck out the marrow and blood from their bodies, and leave you a twisted lump of flesh to grovel at my feet. That and all of the above. The fox licked its lips hungrily before letting that evil smile cross its face again. An angry look crossed Naruto's face. The way he blatantly said he'd destroy everything he held dear was infuriating. You bastard, the villagers were right. You are a demon. I hope you rot in this cell for the rest of my life, you fucking bastard. The fox's face screwed up slightly, going from that deep smile to an odd frown. Stupid boy, do you think this seal will hold me forever? Simply by being here, talking with me already shows the seal is weakening. It is only a matter of time before I feast on your bones. The fox growled at him, but Naruto wasn't fazed as he stared the fox down, and surprisingly the fox frowned and backed down a bit. No matter, I am only telling you this now, because you will find out soon enough anyway. After you killed that villager, the other weaklings are taking advantage and surrounding your unconscious body. Now if it were up to me, I'd have just let them kill you, but seeing as my health is directly connected to you still breathing, I'll give you my aid this once. The red beast grunted once before it forced its crimson chakra through the gaps of the bars, surrounding Naruto in a vile cloak. What are you doing to me? Naruto yelled. Unless you wish to die from those pathetic villagers, you'll let my power in. Even if you don't believe me, I promise not to hurt you this once. I need you alive and blood pumping to eat you. I don't particularly like rotten meat. The fox grunted once again and Naruto felt reality tug him back. With a shock his eyes opened wide, to see a dozen or more weapons coming down on him. With a rush of energy a dark red chakra rose up, pushing the men away. Naruto stood up as the red chakra formed around him. Get back, you worthless bastards! He yelled, raising his hands in an attempt to do as he did earlier with the ice powers. He felt the familiar biting wind and cold in his arms, before something else filled him, a deep foreboding. Suddenly time seemed to stop. Naruto looked down at his arms, where what looked like green and blue energy were forming around his hands. They mixed with the red fox chakra, forming dark violets and dark browns, before the three colors mixed together violently. In shock both Naruto and Kyuubi's voices said at once, Naruto vocally, Kyuubi subconsciously. What? Before all sound disappeared in a flash of white light. Forest of Death. An hour later Naruto awoke, yet again, in a place he didn't recognize. At least it isn't a sewer this time, Naruto thought dryly. He was laying in a meter-deep crater where it appeared as though he had hit rather hard. He looked down at his tattered clothing, held together by the seams. Well, there goes my wardrobe, he chuckled absently, shaking on his feet. Whatever the hell had happened had drained him badly of chakra. Naruto looked around. He appeared to be in a forest of some kind. The trees above him were busted, showing he had crashed through from above. Apparently whatever that light had been, it had launched him far into the air. Then how am I alive? He wondered for a moment before he palmed his face. Fox chakra. Duh. One of the few times from this point on he would admit the fox being sealed inside him was a good thing. Okay, I'm not dead and I'm not hurt. Now where the hell am I? Naruto mused, looking around the dense forest again. The meager light coming from the setting sun didn't give him much hope of finding his way, and it would be dark soon, so he'd be even more screwed. His hopes for shelter were put on hold as a voice rang out answering his earlier question. "You, my dear dumbass, are in my home sweet home, the forest of death." The voice seemed to be coming from all around him. To his surprise, it sounded like a woman. "Lovely name, let me guess. It's a forest and it's filled with death," Naruto replied sarcastically. Not missing a beat, the voice replied, "How did you know? Maybe you aren't such a dumbass after all." The sarcasm was evident in her voice. Sure enough, a woman appeared in front of him, leaning against a nearby tree. She had light purple hair done up in a fan style, while her pale brown eyes added a nice contrast to the spiky bangs covering her face. Her clothing was some of the sluttiest ninja gear he had ever seen. What was visible beneath the tan trench coat she wore was a skin-tight mesh bodysuit that was cut off on the legs and arms halfway out. On top of that, she had a very short dark brown miniskirt that left little to the imagination. There was also a fang necklace on her neck, but other than that was just standard ninja gear on her legs and waist. "So dumbass, what's a brat like you doing out here in my neck of the woods?" "Where exactly is here? Are we still in Konoha?" "Yep, Gaki. This is one of our training grounds, number 44 to be exact, the Forest of Death." Her attitude was bubbly to say the least. It definitely fit her wardrobe. "So I ask you again." Suddenly Naruto was suspended upside down in the air by his legs. He looked up and saw a large snake coiled around the limbs. "What are you doing here?" she finished with a glare. The blonde gulped noticeably at the large python constricting his legs. "I don't know honestly. First I'm getting chased down by some people. Next I'm cornered and attacked. Then some weird blue and green chakra surrounds me and some crazy ice forms. Then some red chakra mixes with that and then everything went white and here I am." Naruto blurted roughly, though his explanation tactfully leaving out his knowledge of the fox. He didn't know the woman. She was clearly a Konoha nin judging by her headband, but he still didn't trust anyone but maybe old man Hokage with the truth of his meeting with the fox. Anko looked at the boy, his appearance showing her more skin than necessary with all the rips in his clothing and the several burns on the cloth. It was possible that the fox's chakra had taken over the boy and had caused the explosion, but what concerned Anko most was those other two chakra the boy spoke of. Damn, this isn't good. If what he says is true, those people who cornered him are probably dead. Not like they deserve any sympathy for attacking a child, but damn, this kid is out of luck if the council gets a hold of him. Better take him to Sarutobi, he'll know what to do. Anko walked over to him. "We're going to meet the Hokage Gaki. Try to cover yourself a bit, won'tcha?" She gave him a dirty little grin that made Naruto blush a little. Before the both of them disappeared in a shushin. In the office of Sarutobi Hiruzen, aka the Sandaime Hokage, the old man was working on a stack of papers, his old age keeping him here late into the night with his duties to the village and its people. It was at this time that a swirl of leaves signaled a shushin into the third's office. He looked up quickly to see Anko. Behind her was Naruto hanging by his legs from one of Anko's snake familiars. He relaxed visibly when he realized who it was and leaned back into his chair. "What can I do for you, Anko? And why do you have Naruto tied up like that?" "Well, sir," she glanced meaningfully at Naruto, "this has something to do with that explosion earlier, doesn't it?" Anko nodded and the third sighed. "I'm assuming it was Naruto, right?" The third shot Naruto a serious look. Naruto gulped. "Yes sir, but I think it had to do with that, sir," Anko explained. The third's face became solemn as he pondered what to do next. What he wasn't prepared for was Naruto somehow slipping out of Anko's grasp and confronting him. "Gigi." Naruto sighed as he sat down in the chair opposite of him. Naruto looked up and stared straight into Sarutobi's eyes. The dead look in Naruto's sky-blue eyes made Sarutobi visibly flinch. "I know about Kyuubi, old man. I met it tonight, and there are some things we need to talk about." Naruto's voice was dead serious. If it wasn't for the way he looked, you'd forget you were talking to a 7-year-old child. At the mention of the fox, a shocked expression crossed the third's face, but he hid it quickly. After a second to recompose himself, he coughed. "Naruto, I want you to understand my reasons for hiding these things from you. First, the Yondaime Hokage, Minato, asked me to keep these things hidden from you that you could possibly have a normal life. I have watched over you with my crystal ball for the last 7 years, particularly this last month, and I can see now that that isn't an option, and for that I am sorry." The third looked silently at Naruto. The boy's face was a mixture of anger and hurt. The fact Sarutobi would hide something as important as that from him left a bad taste in his mouth. Second, the third spoke up. Minato also asked me to tell you these things when you turned 16 or became a chunin so that you'd be able to handle the stress those in your position have to handle daily. This too has become a moot point seeing as you already know, and from that look in your eyes I can also see you are not taking it very well. The third took off his hat and placed it on the table. Did the fox say anything else? I know who Dad is. The third sighed sadly. Then this becomes a bit easier to explain. At the very least I would have told you who he was anyway after I explained things better. The third trailed off for a few moments before he began again. Tell me Naruto, what would you have done in the Yandaim's position if you were forced to make the choices he made? Naruto looked at him strangely. Let me put that another way. Would you have put the burden that you now carry on the shoulders of someone else? Would you force that fate on someone else's child when you yourself were not willing to make that sacrifice? Naruto's face went pale as he thought about that. Would he have done that, really? Sarutobi continued. That, Naruto, is what we Hokage must do. We make the hard choices. We send ninja out every day to their deaths, and when the time comes we ourselves must face down the biggest threats to the village. Even at the cost of our lives. Do you understand? Naruto thought for a long time on the third words, letting several minutes pass by. He answered honestly, yeah old man, I understand and know I would have taken the fox to my grave if I had to, but I still don't like it. I hate this, what I really am. Then you understand more than I had hoped what my position is on this situation. You don't have to like it, but it's the situation I was forced into to ensure that the village didn't tear itself apart over this. Most civilians don't know the fox was sealed within you. They just assume that since you were the only child born that day along with the whiskers on your face that you were the fox reincarnated in human form. It didn't help much that you were in my office when the council convened that night after the fox's defeat. The council assumed you were the monster sealed in human form, or at the very least what most of the more intelligent ninja already knew, that you were a Jinchuriki. Many of them called for your immediate death, but I did all I could to halt their intentions. Sadly, the only thing I could do was put you in the orphanage and pass a law that made it illegal to speak of the fox to any of the newer generation, and for 7 years that law has held people's hatred for you down under pain of death. But know this Naruto, I'm not a god, I can't devote all my time to watching you, and that mistake has led us to this. The third sighed and grabbed a single sheet of paper. Out of the 10 people that confronted you, none of them lived, they were torn apart by whatever it was that you did. I don't hold it against you. In fact, there is really nothing that can be done to you since you acted in self-defense, but know now that your life is going to be much harder. Already there are rumors of your involvement, and the council will probably try to do everything in their power to limit, hinder or otherwise try and outright kill you to end the threat they feel you pose. Naruto looked crestfallen. Seeing how hard his life had been now, it would only get worse. He couldn't take it anymore, as hot tears fell down his cheeks, and soft whimpers echoed around the room. Enko was looking at the boy sadly, feeling a very similar pain that he was feeling. He's in the same boat as me, she thought quietly. Ever since that bastard Orochimaru had abandoned her, she had been ostracized by the village, only keeping her position and pedigree by hard work and menial labor since Orochimaru left the village, and she could only see herself in Naruto. Sir, if I may, she asked at length. Go ahead. He waved for her to speak. Naruto looked up at her, 2 long streams of tears staining his cheeks. If things are going to get harder for Naruto, then he needs someone to take care of him, someone willing and able, sir. Naruto just stared, but the third sighed his agreement. You are right, Anko, but who here would take care of the boy? The council will ruin the reputation of anyone trying to help the boy, and none of the other ninja besides Kakashi would take the boy in. And I for one don't think Kakashi would be the best choice to take care of a child. The third trailed off, leaving the idea hanging. Enko snorted at that thought. Kakashi was good guy, but the man read so much porn and was tardy for every meeting he was ever called to. He'd be nothing but a bad influence on the boy. Not that her idea was much better, but seeing the same look in the boy's eye that stared back at her every morning in the mirror just hit too close to home for her. What about me, sir? Enko asked timidly. Naruto's head spun around so fast you'd think his neck snapped. He stared at her wide-eyed, breath caught in his throat. You know my situation, Sarutobi. Me and him are in more or less the same boat. The council won't touch either of us due to our situation, and it's better to have someone to lean on than stand alone, am I right? Anko smiled sadly. The third sighed. He was getting too old for this shit. I don't know if I can trust you with this one, Anko, this is a very serious. The third was about to continue when Anko cut him off. Trust. Anko shouted in outrage. Trust is something I've had to work tooth and nail to get after that snake bastard left the village. I have sweat blood and tears to get to where I am. Who else than me to take care of the boy? Someone who has shared his pain and has come out of that darkness at least somewhat sane. She glared daggers at Sarutobi, who sighed again. He was getting too old for this shit. Very well, Anko. I leave him in your capable hands, but I have a few more things to say to Naruto. What is it, old man? Naruto asked, his joy at finally having someone take care of him tempered by the serious way the third addressed him. First of all, eyewitnesses said that they saw several oddities about the chakra explosion that happened earlier. First, that it wasn't just the fox's red chakra, but a green and blue chakra as well. Can you tell me what you felt when these things were going on? Well, all I know is that before the explosion those two odd color chakras made some weird kind of ice around me and protected me from the villagers, but other than that I don't know. I see. Naruto, come here for a moment. The third reached into his drawer and pulled out a stack of paper. He pulled one out and handed it to Naruto. I assume you at least know how to channel chakra, right, Naruto? The orphanage said that you were able to copy the invisibility illusion, and I've seen you use it several times to escape from the villagers. Yes, sir. Naruto focused his chakra. It wasn't much, but it was enough. The paper at first did nothing, but then it seemed to split down the middle. Before one of the corners of the paper became wet, Naruto dropped the paper in shock. What happened? It seems you may have tapped into a latent Hokage, maybe something on your mother's side. Whatever it is, the third was cut off by a gasp from Anko. Sir, she pointed to the paper on the floor. Sure enough, on the floor the piece of chakra paper had split again, across the original cut, creating 4 equal slices, and oddly enough, each of the slices were doing something different. One was still soaking wet, one was burning to ash, another was crumpled into a little ball, and the last was nothing but a pinch of dust on the floor. Kami. Sarutobi was speechless. All elemental affinities. Anko finished for him. What are you guys talking about? Naruto asked, curious about their shocked expressions. Naruto, do you know what this means? Anko asked him. When he shook his head, Sarutobi spoke up. This means something unprecedented. Naruto, having all elemental affinities is all but impossible. Sure, most people have one major affinity. Most jonin after years of practice can have 1 or 2 minor affinities as well. But Naruto, not only do you have a major affinity with wind, shown by how the paper split not once but twice, but all 4 other elements as major affinities, and those affinities are extremely powerful. I've never seen chakra paper affected so powerfully by an element. Naruto, the reason this is unprecedented is the fact the last person to have an affinity to all 5 elements was the Raikudo Sennin himself. The third let that bit of information hang grimly in the air as the 3 of them stared blankly at what was left of the paper. Chapter 2. Perfect for each other, maybe. But how? Naruto asked, shocked by what all this could mean. The third looked pensive a moment, stroking his beard in thought. Honestly, I don't know, he said at length. I have a theory as to how that could happen, but it's a bit out there. What do you mean? Anko looked curiously at the third. Well, if my guess is correct, Naruto may have had, or may still have a Hokage, one of the lost bloodlines of the Land of Mist, the land near Whirlpool. The home country of the Uzumaki clan, which Naruto is descended from. As you know, wind and water are the affinities of Hyoten, or ice release. What most people don't know is that the tailed beasts all have chakra affinities as well. For instance, Kyuubi's affinity is fire, an extremely strong fire affinity. What I'm guessing here, and this is strictly guessing, is that when you subconsciously used the Hyoten bloodline, it mixed in all the wrong ways with the fire-aligned fox's chakra, causing a massive feedback into your chakra system. Namely, the mixing of the fire and water affinities caused an imbalance, and the wind chakra tossed fuel onto the flames, so to speak, creating even more havoc in the boy's systems. But what I don't understand is why he now has 5 elemental affinities, but I'm guessing it has something to do with the feedback. The rest of the third's words were cut off as Naruto felt himself being pulled inside himself. it was an odd feeling that left him in that familiar sewer that was apparently his mindscape. Naruto's sweat dropped. I seriously need to figure out a way to clear out my head. Honestly, if this is how a normal person's mind looks like, I'd hate to see the inside of a perv's head. That's not how a mindscape works, monkey. The very irritated voice of the fox echoed around him. A mindscape is based on a person's personality and experiences through life. Seeing how bad you've been abused, your life has pretty much been in the shitter, your mind apparently took that literally. I really didn't want to hear that coming from you. The two flaming orbs of the fox stared blankly at him as his eyebrow twitched in irritation. The fox leaned back a little, relaxing as much as it seemed possible in that relatively small cage. Deal with it, human. We have more serious things to discuss. I know you're talking about how you apparently obtained an affinity to all 5 elements, and I personally want to put my 2 cents into this conversation. Sarcasm filled the blonde's voice. And how exactly are you going to do that, fuzzball? If you haven't noticed, you're locked up in here and there's no way in hell I'm releasing the seal. He puffed up in front of the great demon, pointing an accusing finger at the beast. The Kyuubi sweat dropped. Well, as much as I loathe to admit it, you were right for once. However, I have an idea. It's not the preferred one, seeing as I'd rather be released to cause mayhem and torment as is my namesake, but you continue to be difficult. Well, sorry if I actually care for things other than myself. He glared at the fox, not budging an inch despite the fact the creature was 100 times his size. Sigh. I remember now why I don't try to reason and just eat you monkeys. You always give me a migraine. The fox rubbed the bridge of its nose with its claws, which to Naruto looked rather hilarious, and he tried hard not to laugh. And was failing miserably. Shut it, human. I'm willing to help you here to further my goals. Be glad I'm even lending you my aid. If events had been any different, I'd have left you to squirm without knowing anything, but seeing as you now have something this troublesome running through you, you need to be informed in case you accidentally kill yourself and me along with you. The fox grumbled a few times angrily. What do you mean? Naruto stuttered a little, his eyes shifted to concern in anticipation of what the fox would say. You can preform hand signs, correct? Naruto nodded. Good, I'm going to teach you a jutsu known as shadow clones. This is one part of what you need for me to help. And don't worry about the outside world. Time flows differently here. Minutes outside can last hours in here, so you should have plenty of time to learn. Naruto nodded again, looking at the Kyuubi's hands. Claws, and noticed they were in a seal. See this seal here? Naruto nodded again. Now this isn't a very difficult jutsu. The only reason I know this particular jutsu is because it only requires one hand sign, and those bastard leaf shinobi used the thing countless times on me when I was destroying your villages. Hee, good times. The fox chuckled darkly, and Naruto turned a beet red at the beast's nonchalant attitude at murdering the people who would one day be his subjects. If he had a way to get the cage hat, well boy, start practicing. Contrary to popular belief, I don't have an eternity to wait. The fox broke him out of his thoughts and showed the boy the seal again. Put as much chakra into the jutsu as you can. We're going for replication, not fine-tuning. So anything above 5 clones should be sufficient control for what I'm planning. Once you have that down, I'll show you the next step. Naruto blinked once, coming back to reality to find the third still talking. Yo, old man. The third stopped for a moment to look at Naruto curiously. I don't really know how to say this, but, well, Kyuubi wants to talk to you. The third stared blankly at Naruto for a moment before shouting. What? The third's eyes widened considerably, his mouth hanging open a little in disbelief. Yeah, 1 second. The blonde sweat dropped and put his hand into a familiar seal with a slight twist as his hands flipped through 3 more seals after that. Hidden art. Kyuubi Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. With a small flash of red chakra, the room was filled with a puff of smoke. When the smoke cleared, the 3 looked around the room expectantly, the 2 adults in a bit of fear at what the fox might have made Naruto do. A slight cough brought them out of their searching. The 3 looked down only to sweat drop. A little fox sat on the floor between Naruto's legs with a pissed-off expression. Imagine a fennec fox. If you don't know what those are, look them up. They're cute, furry little fuckers. All my hate. All of it. The fox twitched in anger. You could at least learn better chakra control. That was pathetic. It was odd-looking to say the least that such a deep voice was coming out of something that small. Naruto. The third and Anko looked at each other for a moment, then immediately fell to the floor laughing. I hate all of you. The third was the first to come out of the laughing fit. Kyuubi, is that really you? You're a bit smaller than I remember. The third eyed the fox, who now had a feral look to its face. I'm not even going to answer that remark, monkey. I came here to discuss the circumstances of the container's chakra system. The third immediately sobered up. What do you mean? What has happened that I should be aware of? The third's hands clenched in concern. If the fox was willing to speak to him in person, animal, then something terrible must have happened. As you probably know, the boy now has all the elemental affinities. Quote. The third nodded. Well then, this shall be easy. What you don't know is that when my chakra mixed with the boy's Kekkei Genkai, it caused a chain reaction in his chakra network, causing a feedback that all but completely destroyed his chakra network. Every one of his tenketsu were vaporized. At this, all the human mouths in the room dropped. Yes, I see you understand that little bit of information at least. Well, moving on. I worked furiously on the boy, sending around 3 taels worth of chakra through his system all at once to repair what I could. Now this is where it gets strange. You know basic chakra theory, right, mortal? It looked pointedly at the third, who nodded in response. Good. Then you know how a being's elemental affinity is decided in the womb, where the parent's DNA is used to determine the affinity. What happened here is extremely rare, but with my tinkering in the boy's chakra systems I came across the symptoms of elemental convergence. This is unheard of in humans, mainly because humans can rarely survive their chakra system being vaporized. We demons and those of the summon realm can survive to an extent, but this boy surviving is not only statistically impossible, but should be naturally impossible. No natural being should be able to channel all 5 elements effortlessly. The only reason the Rikudo Sennin was able to do so was because of the Rinnegan. The eyes themselves were an unnatural occurrence that allowed the man to do so. So what does this mean for Naruto here? The third asked, genuinely curious now. Hey, what it means is that when I repaired the boy's chakra network, the other elemental affinities leached into his system. As I said before, a child's elemental affinity is decided in the womb. But unlike other sources of DNA, like the facial features of the parents and body types, the chakra network isn't set in stone. You can naturally change your elements to an extent with training. You can't effectively use all elements, but you could easily learn a few jutsu from affinities that you aren't aligned to. But when you completely destroy a portion of the chakra network and it is repaired, the elemental affinity that is present isn't there anymore. In effect, you have an elemental neutrality. This draws in any elements around it, and unfortunately for the boy, he landed in the forest of death, where the elements have gone haywire for generations. Wait, what do you mean by that? Anko interrupted. I've lived there all my life. Nothing really seems out of the ordinary there. The fox sweat dropped. Do you honestly think the flora and fauna there are natural? Everything in that place is either highly toxic or abnormally large. Even in the ninja world, that place isn't normal. Anko made a slight face. To be precise, it is a chaotic zone. There are several of these places in the world that cause things like that to happen. Sometimes whole nations are subject to a chaotic zone, such as Demon Country, or small pockets like the Forest of Death. The fox took a moment to collect itself. In short, a chaotic zone is where the natural energies of the world are twisted and concentrated. That means all 5 elements highly concentrated in one place, and that's what leads us to the boy here. After I repaired his chakra network, his elementally neutral system drew in everything around it like a magnet. Hell, even I don't know to what extent the boy absorbed. He could have 100 bloodlines for all I know now with how much chaotic energy is in that forest. I'm surprised he hasn't sprouted any fox features since my chakra was laced through his system when the absorption Santa. Actually, you might want to keep an eye on that. I'm willing to bet he'll start growing fox attributes soon. There's just no way he wouldn't. I was too close to his chakra system not to. Great. The villagers hate me now without the fox features. How much more will they attack me when I'll look like you? Naruto said bitterly. Don't blame me, human. I'm not the one who cornered you in that alley. If you want to blame anyone, blame those fools that you turned to dust. As much as I enjoy this conversation, the third started dryly. What does this mean for Naruto in the long run, and how will it affect him? The fox thought for a moment before replying, honestly, I have no idea. Like I said before, this is unheard of in humans. the only thing that I can think of that would hamper him is the piss-poor control he has so far. I mean, I was supposed to be around the size of a large ninja dog, but no, I'm a chihuahua." The three humans in the room chuckled at that. Quote. "If anything, you should consider this a blessing. This boy has more going for him now than most prodigy of prodigies. All 5 elemental affinities means he has access to all spheres of elemental jutsu. And since 4 of the 5 are fairly equal, with wind being the exception due to the boy's originally high wind affinity, you can probably use many elemental bloodline abilities naturally now on top of the ice bloodline you already had. Not to mention abilities you gained from absorbing any energies from me or the plants and animals around you. Hell, for all I know you could have the Sharingan by now, and if not now, maybe develop it further on. You don't realize the scope of what's happened to you yet. If I wasn't so bitter towards your old man, I'd actually compliment you on the improvement." Naruto had something of a bitter smirk on his face when the explanation started. As the conversation went on, it turned into a smile and just grew wider from there. "So you're saying I now have a better chance at being Hokage than ever before?" "PFFT Hokage." The fox chuckled. "If you aren't careful, you could be the next Rikudo Sennin for all I know." Naruto's grin took up his whole face. Hell yeah. He hopped out of the chair he was sitting in and did a little happy dance, pumping his fists in the air. Sarutobi took out his pipe and lit it. "I find it hard to believe that there are no side effects to this happening to the boy. Are you sure that there isn't any adverse side effects other than the fox parts and possible new bloodlines? Something that might hurt the boy at any point?" The fox glared at the old man with an irritated look on its face. "Human. I've said this before already. I don't know. This rarely happens even for demons, and it has never happened for humans as far back as I can remember. And I've lived longer than 100 of your lifetimes. Hell, the odds of this happening ever is statistically 0, or at least it should be. I mean, the things that would have to happen to even survive something like this are insane. First, a person would have to have a healing factor. With my chakra, that's a given, but most humans in the world don't have that. Second, said human would have to have a bloodline, an elemental bloodline in particular, in this case, the boy's Hyoten bloodline. Third, you would need a foreign chakra that is the direct positive and negative reacting element to the 2 elements in the bloodline, in my case fire opposing the water and wind element, and finally you would need a chaotic zone close by when the feedback happened. All of this together is possible to do, but even then the odds of the person actually surviving the event are again near 0. So you see, I have no clue what will happen to the boy. Hell, he could turn into a demon and sprout random animal parts and elements out of his body for all I know." Naruto looked about ready to pass out at this information, but before the sweet embrace of unconsciousness could take him, the fox interrupted his freak out. "But in this case I can say that this is unlikely. For the most part, the only time anything of that nature happens is due to the fact that demons and summons are physically, mentally, and in some cases spiritually different from humans, and that's only in the worst cases that has happened to someone. In your case, human, your body is much different than a demon or summons. Your body is more rigid in its physical nature, unlike us. On top of that, you have my demonic chakra on damage control. I can, to an extent, control what happens in your body through my chakra, and considering both those things, I can safely say you won't turn into a monster or anything of that nature." Naruto sighed in relief at this. "So I just wait and see what happens then?" "Basically yes. Other than that, maybe try and work on all your elemental affinities and see what you can do with them all now. If you have the capability of multiple elemental bloodlines, then it's possible to unlock a few of these and other more physical bloodlines you may have absorbed early to help you later in life." The third listened to all of this, quietly weighing his options in the matter. On the one hand, the boy's life was turned on its head. The civilians would soon be out for blood. If he was to have any sense of normality, he needed an out. Enko was a good start. The woman shared the boy's lot in life. Unable to do anything about their situation and ostracized for things outside of their control, but the third knew that wouldn't stop the majority of the civilian council from calling for his blood, and since the boy wasn't a ninja, he couldn't protect the boy from them either. The only thing that could really save the boy is if he could somehow spin this new information about bloodlines to convince the council that the boy was worth the lives lost. Lord knows the civilians are bloodline hungry as it is, but that would just turn the boy into breeding stock. He'd need something more to keep that from happening. But what? The third looked at Naruto silently, watching him talk with Anko. The Kyuubi was sitting in the corner seemingly ignoring everyone when suddenly an idea came to him. It was a cruel idea, but it could prove to be beneficial to all parties involved. Naruto, Anko. The third spoke up gruffly. The two in question snapped to attention, looking at the third expectantly. I've thought over this matter and I have a few things I need to get out of the way. First off, if you are going to stay with Anko, there needs to be a legitimate reason. The civilian council will jump all over that and I wouldn't be able to do much about it. The room grew quiet. Naruto sat down a little somber at the thought of being back on the streets again. Couldn't I just adopt him? Anko asked curiously. He'd be like a little brother. She shot the boy a grin. I've already tried that. Sarutobi replied sadly. I'd have adopted the boy myself if that were the case. Naruto was shocked by the monk's words. He never knew that the old man cared that much about him, but those words only cemented his respect for him even more. Also, that's not the only problem related to the civilian council. The third took a long drag on his pipe. I know this might come as a shock, but I don't think that the civilian council will let the deaths of so many civilians just be ignored. They most likely will try to ask for your life, Naruto. The grimness in the third's tone sent chills up the blonde's spine as he turned a pale shade of white. However, he looked up quietly. I have an idea that might help. The third sent a meaningful look at Anko, who, like the blonde next to her, paled drastically. Naruto, Anko, the third sighed. My idea is for the two of you to be married. You could hear the pair of jaws hitting the floor at this point, while the Kyuubi was laughing its ass off in the corner. What? The blonde and the babe replied together. It's exactly as I said. Now listen to my reasons before you say anything else, the third growled out. The two wisely shut their mouths before nodding. Naruto, the only thing that I can think of to get you out of this situation is to reveal what has happened to you to the council. If I can convince the council that you are much more valuable alive than dead, then it just may be enough to save you. But to do that you need to provide something of value to the village, and in your case that is where your bloodline and/or bloodlines will come into play. The third turned to the fox in the corner. Kyuubi, what has happened to the boy can be inherited by his children, correct? The fox nodded. Well, that is the basis for my idea. As long as you are alive, your bloodline will keep the council off of you. As for you two being wed, there are several reasons for that. First, he held up a finger. It's to keep the council from whoring the boy off to half the women in the village when he comes of age. Having a bride-to-be will keep most of them happy as long as you are married and have at least one child by the time you are 16. Of course they may push for you to have multiple wives according to the Clan Restoration Act, since you are technically the head of your clan, but that is entirely your decision as long as you have at least one wife and child. The third held up another finger. Second, this will also allow you and Anko to remain close to one another, allowing Anko to take care of you, Naruto. This also means that you will always be under watch by an experienced ninja, which will make your case a lot easier when they demand someone keep an eye on you. Another finger went up. And finally third, this applies to you, Anko. It is to allow you to redeem yourself in eyes of the council, both ninja and civilian. Being married means that you are tied in a way to this village now, so the odds of you defecting are slightly lower in the eyes of your peers. You would be able to gain a certain amount of respect from both sides of the council, not only for going through with this in the first place, but if everything goes as planned, then possibly redeeming yourself completely by following through with it as well. He let his words sink in for a moment before continuing. This whole idea is underhanded, I know. It's also unfair to both of you in a way, but given what has happened and what will most likely happen, this is the best course of action. Do you both understand? Anko was silent for a while as she mulled over the third's plan. She could definitely benefit from this in a major way. Ever since that snake bastard Orochimaru had abandoned her, she had been the black sheep, a stain on the supposedly proud village of Konoha. Hell, her life sucked. Everyone looked down on her and no one would give her the time of day. Hell, this really was the only option open to her at the moment that at least had some guarantee of redemption with a minimal amount of effort. And who's to say? They really weren't that far apart age-wise. 9 years isn't that much, and that gap would mean less and less the older they got, so age didn't really bother her. She had also seen the fourth Hokage in his prime. If this boy looked anything like him when he got older, he'd be quite the looker. Personality-wise, she could tell at least mentally the boy was older than he appeared. That came with the whole "I have no family and I grew up on my own" mentality, but if all else failed, she'd have the rest of his young life to groom the boy in anything he currently lacked. So to cap off her mental checklist, he had the looks, mentality, prestige, most likely ability given this new development in his powers, and with that he'd also have the finances down after he grew up a bit and could take on missions. So really, what problem did she have? Well, she could think of one, as she stole a glance at the boy's pants. No, bad Anko, she mentally berated herself. Orochimaru is the pedophile, not you. Though, that didn't stop her from glancing at the boy's crotch again. If the Gaki was packing heat when the time came for them to truly tie the knot, she could say with certainty that he'd be one hell of a hubby. Naruto, on the other hand, was completely blank. As soon as the third had finished speaking, the hamster wheel stopped spinning and the gears locked up. I'm going to be married, he thought stupidly. Is that what I want? Really? The boy was stumped. He had never thought about the future. The only real goal he had set for himself was getting the hat from the old man. Becoming Hokage really was his only dream, but what about a family? A wife? Those thoughts running through the boy's head were confusing him to no end. Hell, a 7-year-old wasn't meant to think about his future in that way. Give him another 8 to 10 years and maybe he'd be ready for that responsibility, but no, he had to make the choice now. He knew that the third wouldn't force this on him. It was his choice after all, but given the way things were, it really was the only choice. The third watched the two mentally go through all of what he had said and weigh their options. It was kind of cute how Naruto had such a serious expression on his face. Given his age, he couldn't hold a serious face without looking completely ridiculous and adorable at the same time, but the third knew the boy was genuinely thinking things through. Just like his father, so considerate of others. It made the old man proud that Naruto had turned out so much like his father. Though he did have a bit too much of his mother in him for his own good. And the safety and sanity of the village for that matter. He turned to Anko, who had a more interesting expression, somewhere between apprehension and resigned acceptance. Well, at least she's considering it, he thought. After a few moments he noticed both of them were staring right at him with resolve in both of their eyes. Have you decided? He asked at length. Naruto was the first to speak. Yeah, Gramps, he rubbed the back of his head sheepishly. I'll go with it, but only if An-chan wants to as well. Anko's eyebrow and mouth twitched at the pet name as she dropped her head. Yeah, she sighed. I gotta say that this is one of the better things that's happened to me in my life. If what you say is true and I can actually get some recognition in my own damn village, then yeah, I'll go along with this. Good, that makes things infinitely easier. The third sighed. Rummaging through his desk, the third pulled out several papers and placed them on the desk. These papers here need to be signed to recognize that you both are indeed married. Once signed, you will need a ring made to seal the deal. Actually, hold on a moment. The third dug deeper through his desk and pulled out a small shiny metal band with a little diamond in the center. Anko frowned at the ring. Why the hell do you have one of those in your desk? The third sweat dropped. Well, I'm one of the few people in the village who does marriage services, aside from the fire monks and a few others in the village. Though people tend to come to me when they need to keep an engagement or marriage secret. Also, the amount of people who elope in this village is just silly. I get a couple in here once every other month or so I tend to keep at least a few of these things lying around just in case. The couple to be stared blankly as the old man as he placed the band on the table next to the papers. Well, Naruto, will you do the honors? The third nodded towards the ring and gave the boy a pointed look. Naruto nodded dumbly as he grabbed the ring. Gulping hard, the boy climbed up into the chair to be level with Anko. The boy gulped once before kneeling on one knee. Anko raised an eyebrow at this. If it wasn't for the fact that the person kneeling in front of her was a 7-year-old, she'd have been flattered. As it stood, though, she was trying hard not to giggle at the ridiculous sight. Naruto gulped hard and tried asking the question. Anko Chan, the boy stuttered. Will you marry me? The boy had seen people do this before, but doing it himself was an entirely different story. He felt weird doing it, uncomfortable even, like people were staring, though it was probably just Anko who looked to be on the verge of falling on her ass from laughter. Anko looked at her future husband and chuckled mentally. The brat's got guts, I'll give him that. She reached out her left hand. Sure, brat, I'll marry you, but when the time comes I hope you can handle me. She winked at him with a devious little smirk. Naruto nodded solemnly. I will, Anko-chan. I'll take responsibility and take care of you when we get married. The boy didn't realize exactly what he had just said, or maybe he did and the adults in the room just took it the wrong way. Yeah, that. Enko couldn't take it anymore and fell to the floor laughing. The third had a perverted grin and a small trail of blood coming from his nose. Kyubi. Well, he was asleep, but the wide grin on his face showed he was well aware of what his idiot container had just said. It wasn't that funny, he huffed. Yeah, it was gacky. Enko cackled from the floor, still laughing hard. Naruto frowned. He didn't like being laughed at like that. I'll show her, he thought mischievously. A small devious grin spread across his face as the prankster in him welled up. Walking over to Enko, he slipped the ring on her finger and in a bold move that shocked even Kyubi of all things he leaned down and kissed Enko on the lips. The third choked on his pipe. Kyubi's ears shot up and his eyes flew open. Enko, well, she was frozen. That cheeky bastard, she thought in shock. With that devious smirk still on his lips he chuckled. Thank you, Enko-chan, I'll take good care of you when we're married. Apparently Naruto wasn't as dumb as he looked. Enko and the third both turned bright red at the way the boy said, good, and Kyubi burst out laughing in the corner. Ha 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 ha, if it's one thing I like about you, boy, it's that devious nature of yours. Got the blood of the kitsune in you, no doubt about it. Naruto walked smugly back to his chair as he waited for the other humans in the room to compose themselves after that little stunt of his. Oi, you little brat. The snake mistress fumed as she got up off the floor and approached the boy with a menacing gleam in her eyes, cracking her knuckles loudly. The third turned away from the beating that was about to ensue, and judging from the sounds coming from behind him he was wise to do so. The third turned back to see Naruto with a large anime-style whelp on his head with a black eye to match. Ahem, now that you've both kissed and made up, he chuckled when the two yelled at him for that cheeky remark. It's down to business, sign the forms here and make this marriage official. The third handed them a pen. Enko signed it first. She gave the pen to Naruto, who looked at the paper warily. Is there something wrong, Naruto? The third asked, concerned at what was stopping the boy. Well, yes. I can't write. The adults and Fox in the room face-vaulted. The third picked himself up off the floor. What do you mean you can't write? Didn't the caretakers in the orphanage teach you? He raised one eyebrow when the boy looked down, ashamed. No. They didn't. They really didn't teach me anything. I had to teach myself. At this both eyebrows rose. The boy had taught himself everything he knew. That alone filled the old man with anger. He would have a long talk with the orphanage staff after this was all over and done with. And by talk he meant torture and interrogation. Naruto, just sign with an X and stamp your thumbprint in blood. That will be more than enough written proof. Naruto nodded, used the pen to cross an X next to Enko's name, then used a kunai letter opener to slice his thumb open. He dipped the other thumb in the small pool of blood just enough to coat and pushed it onto the paper, leaving the thumbprint slightly smudged but clear enough to show a majority of the boy's fingerprint. The third looked over the paper for a moment before signing it himself as a witness. Well then, by the power vested in me by the Fire Daimyo, the head monk of the Fire Temple and the good people of Konoha, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride. He motioned his hand suggestively with a grin on his face. Enko looked at Naruto, who looked back at her. Well, he's already kissed me once. She rolled her eyes and leaned towards him. Naruto pulled himself together and leaned in as well. For a moment their lips met. Surprisingly, it was a rather long kiss. Naruto broke the kiss. Pulling back, you could see he had a slight blush on his face. Enko was in a similar state. He's actually a good kisser. She giggled to herself. I can't wait to see what he's like when he's older. Well then. The third coughed, a similar blush on his face and a tissue in his nose. I think it's time we break the news to the council. I'll call an emergency meeting now. You two wait here and get to know each other while I take care of things. The third stood up before walking out to his secretary. Tonight's going to be a long night. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like, comment and subscribe, as well as checking out the author on fanfiction.net.